If you clicked on this video, it's likely that you're wanting to learn how to make custom models. Or maybe you want to get a better understanding of Blockbench. Or maybe you've heard a lot of people talking about resource packs and you want to understand just what the heck they're talking about. Whatever the reason may be, this is the video for you. Of course, this video also has a lot of elements to it, and depending on what you already know, some of the information is probably not very useful to you. So I've gone ahead and timestamped all the important parts in the description. So without further ado, let's get right into the knowledge. Let's go over some of the basics. What is a custom model? Well, my definition would be that a custom model is a vanilla Minecraft item that has been given the appearance of something else. The functionality won't be new or different to what is already in the game. You're basically just taking a new design and slapping it onto an already existing item. You've made a fancy hat? Awesome! That goes on top of a carved pumpkin. You've made a frosted donut? Place it on top of a golden carrot. Or flip it around. Make an edible hat. Wear a donut. Despite the limitations, you can get really creative with the possibilities. And while it's not super important, I do want to note that there is a difference between a custom model and a custom texture. A model is something that is three-dimensional, whereas a texture is just a flat image. Minecraft utilizes both. You'll see a flat texture used on things like food, tools, and weapons, and the 3D models are saved mostly for blocks and entities. I personally like making both. Sometimes some things just look better as a custom texture, and some things just look better as a custom model. Take this marshmallow for example. It would be super easy to make this as a model. It could literally just be a white cube, but I wanted to make it a flat texture because I just think it looks better that way. It fits more in with all the other Minecraft foods. But then we have this teddy bear, which, despite being a pretty simple object, is just too detailed to fit in that amount of pixels. Minecraft textures have to fit into a 16 by 16 pixel space. And while you could go bigger, if you want to try and stay consistent with the Minecraft look, I'd suggest following the 16 by 16 format. But at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong way to create things. Just like how there's no right or wrong way to play Minecraft. Just so long as you're having fun, that's the important part. Now that you know what a custom model is, let's learn how to make one. To make a custom model, we will be using the wonderful program known as Blockbench. A link to the program will be down in the description, along with everything else used in this video. So get used to me saying that a lot. Once you've downloaded Blockbench, let's go ahead and open it up. There's a lot of things to learn about Blockbench, but for now, we are just going to be sticking to the basics. Blockbench isn't used for just making Minecraft models, but because that's what it's used for so frequently, it has its own section down here on the left. Today, we will just be working on Java block/item creation. So go ahead and click on that, and then click Create New Model. You can just leave everything here as is, but do go ahead and name the model. Naming is very important in custom model creation. It's best to keep all naming as simple and consistent as possible. You also can't use any spaces in the name, so I like to use underscores instead. Capitalization is fine, but again, for simplicity, I'll be keeping all my naming in lowercase. For this lesson, I'll be creating a top hat to get you familiar with the tools in Blockbench, so feel free to follow along. Once we've named our item, we can go ahead and hit confirm. And if you ever want to go back and change your model's name, head up here to File and click on Project, and you can go ahead and rename it. Now we are in the Blockbench interface where we can start building our model. Our most important button is here on the right and it looks like a cube with a plus sign. This is our Add Cube button. And that's right, you guessed it, it adds cubes. Cubes are what all Minecraft models are made of, so you'll be using this button a lot. Your cube will show up here on this grid, which is 16 by 16 cubes. That's because in Minecraft, a standard block is 16 by 16 by 16 cubes. If you want to move around this area, you can hold down the left click to look around, and you can hold down the right click to move around. And if you want to zoom in and out, use the scroll wheel. Now, I want to center my cube onto this grid. This will make things a lot easier for later. To center the cube, we can just go ahead and select it either by clicking on it here on the right, or just clicking on the cube itself, and we can use these arrows to pull it to the center of the grid. I said that we'd be making a top hat, but it would be very annoying if I made the entire hat out of single 2x2 cubes. Luckily, we can simplify this. We can resize our cubes by going up to our toolbar. We currently have the move icon selected, but now we want to switch to the resize icon. Now the arrows that were around our cube have turned into these piston-looking things. We can use these to squash and stretch the cube in different directions. Here's a tip for making a hat. A Minecraft player's head is 8 cubes tall, 8 cubes long, and 8 cubes wide. So, if we make our first cube 8 by 8 by 8, we can basically get a mannequin cube to use as a reference for what our hat will look like on a player head. An easy way to do this is to go over to the Element tab. You'll see we have a section for position, which is where our cube is, and right underneath we have a section for size, which is how big our cube is. So under size, we'll change our cube from being 2 by 2 by 2 to 8 by 8 by 8. These sizes are our X, Y, and Z directions respectively, but I prefer to think of them as length, height, and width. Of course, you could just resize them with the piston things, which is normally what I do, but when you want to get the numbers real specific, this area helps. We're going to position this once again into the center of the grid, so there should be 4 empty cube spaces stretching in each direction. Now that we've got our mannequin head, it's time to build the actual hat. I'm going to create a new cube for the brim. What's nice about Blockbench is it will make the new cubes you add a different color. This isn't the actual color of the model though. It's just sort of a placeholder to help you differentiate your cubes. If you'd like to change your color, you can right-click on your cube, go to Marker Color, and switch it to one of the other options here. I'm going to go ahead and reshape this cube to be a little flatter and a lot longer and wider. That looks good. Now I'm going to make the crown. Don't feel like your measurements have to be identical to mine. If you want your hat to be a little taller or stouter, feel free to change it up. So now we've got the overall shape. But I want to make this a bit fancier. You know how some top hats have their brim flare out? I want to do that. But rather than making a brand new cube, I'm going to select the brim here and duplicate it. At first, it won't look like anything has happened, but that's because the cube we just duplicated is right on top of the original. So if we just pull it out, there it is! It's already the right height and width, so I'm just going to resize it to be the length that I want. And since the brim is going to flare up on both sides, I'm going to duplicate this side and move it to the other. Now, in order to make these actually flare out, we'll need to rotate them. To the right of our resize tool on the toolbar, we have this whirlpool looking icon, which is the rotation tool. Now we can rotate the cube, but see how this rotation sphere is all the way over here? That's because our pivot point is over there. I like to keep my pivot point centered to my cube, and while I could go up to the toolbar and select this little icon next to the rotate to manually move the pivot point, I prefer changing it here on the right by clicking this icon that looks like a portal cube, which centers the pivot point to the cube I have selected. Each cube has its own pivot point, so this can be a little tedious, but you only have to do this to the ones you'll rotate. On the topic of rotation, a big change was recently made to it. Before 1.21.6, if you wanted to rotate a cube, it could only be in increments of 22.5. Now, you can rotate it however many degrees you'd like. This change was literally just added as I was scripting this, and I'm pretty excited about it. However, while we can rotate this as much as we want, we can only rotate it on one axis, which is a little annoying. But it is what it is. For old time's sake, I'm going to rotate the right curve to 22.5 degrees on the z-axis, and the left curve to negative 22.5 degrees on the z-axis. But now our cubes have become unattached. If you want to move a cube in smaller increments, you can hold shift down while dragging it. However, even then, the cubes still aren't quite connected. This is where vertex snapping comes in. Click on the icon to the right of the pivot tool, and now the cube you have selected will have little gray dots on the corners. This tool will allow us to connect the edges of different cubes perfectly. First, you'll want to have the loose cube selected, then click on its edge that you want to be attached. Next, click on the main model and select the corner that you want the loose cube to get attached to. And just like that, they're snapped together. And we can go ahead and repeat the process on the other side. We're almost done with our model, but there is just one last thing I want to add. You know how fancy top hats have a band or ribbon wrapping around the base of the crown? I want to make that. So I'm going to select the crown and click on the knife tool on the toolbar. I'm going to eyeball a couple cubes from the bottom and click. Wiggle my mouse a bit till I see the horizontal line, then click again. You'll see that it's been split in two. Now, a ribbon on a hat would stick out a bit, so we need to make this cube slightly bigger. If we resize it like normal though, it's going to look a bit chunky. One method around this is to hold shift when resizing, which will resize the cube in smaller increments. And this is how we get half or quarter cubes. The other method would be to use the inflate box, which is over here on the right of size. Let's go ahead and set this to 1. As you can see, it's pretty sensitive, but it's gone ahead and rescaled our band up. Let's change this down to about 0.25. What this has done is resized our cube without adding any more pixels. It just kind of stretched them out a bit. I prefer the latter in this case, so I'm going to keep this as is. Well, that looks like a top hat to me. Now it's time to texture it. But before we do that, there's just a couple quick things we need to do first. We need to make sure that our hat looks the way we want it on a player. See these tabs here in the top right? We're currently on Edit, and we're about to go to Paint. But real quick, let's head over to Display. We've got this funky little Blockbench dude here who's gonna be our mannequin. If you'd like to use your own skin for the mannequin though, just right-click on the dude and you'll see right around the top of the pop-out we have Minecraft skin. Clicking on that will give us the choice to either grab this from a skin file we have on our computer or to just type the username we want to use. And whichever skin the username is currently wearing will be selected. I like seeing my beautiful face, so I'm gonna grab me. There are several things we'll need to do over here in Display. But for now, we're just gonna click on this little smiley face icon, which is where we can adjust the hat to fit our head. For some reason, things are set to be a little smaller by default, so we're gonna scale them up to be pixel consistent. Go down to the scale sliders and drag them up to be 1.6. You can hold shift while moving the sliders to make them resize all at once. Then, go ahead and move it up to where the cube that we made aligns with the player head. We don't actually need the cube anymore, so we can go back to Edit, select it, and delete it. You can also hide cubes by clicking the eyeballs here on the side, but if you don't end up using them, always be sure to delete them before you finish your project, because just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're not there, and that leads to some awkward results. Now's your last chance to make any changes you want to your model. While it is possible to add cubes after you've created your texture, I find the process annoying, so it's best to just avoid that and make things as finalized as possible. So, once you have everything to your liking, it's time to start texturing. Make sure you're back in the Edit tab, and then go ahead and select all your cubes. You can do this by clicking on the top cube in the list here, then hold down the Shift key and click on the bottom cube. Now, go to the bottom left, and click on this icon in the middle that looks like a photograph. We're going to name our texture to the exact same thing as we named our project, and we're going to select our pixel density. This is basically how many pixels can fit on a cube. The higher the pixel density, the more pixels you get. I'm pretty sure everything in Minecraft is 16, so I'll be sticking with that. But of course, you can choose whatever you'd like. We can leave everything else as is and click Confirm. Your model is now going to look a little something like this. It's been covered up in some default placeholder colors. Let's go ahead and move over the Paint tab and change this out to something better. The toolbar has had all its previous tools replaced with some new ones. If you've ever used a drawing program before, most of these should be pretty familiar to you. First, we've got the paintbrush, which we'll be using to draw with. You can change the size, opacity, and softness of the brush over here, as well as the shape and blend mode. Personally, I just stick to the default single pixel brush, but you do you. After the paintbrush, we have the copy brush. When pressing Ctrl, you can click your texture to copy it, and then wherever you click after that will paste what you had selected. And just like the brush, you can change the size, opacity, and all that other stuff. Next, we have one of my favorite tools, the paint bucket. It works pretty much as you would expect, filling in the area you've selected with the color you have selected, but you can change what it fills in this drop down here. The face is the entire side of the cube that you clicked on, the element is the entire cube that you clicked on. Selected elements is just like regular element, but you can select and paint multiple elements by holding Shift. Connected colors is for colors that are connected. Whoa! And just regular colors is if you want to change all of a specific color to something else. If you're using the cubes here to do that, it will only change all of that color on the specific face you're on. But if you use the flat texture over here on the left to edit, you can change them all at once for the entire texture. Like the brush, you can also change the opacity and blend mode, and if you want to use the paint bucket to erase something, click on the icon here that looks like a circle with a line on it. And now whatever you have selected will be erased. And speaking of erasing, to the right of the paint bucket is the eraser tool, which, you guessed it, erases things, but more so like the paintbrush. Then there's the eyedropper tool that allows you to color pick from your model or texture. Then to the right of that is the shape tool, which allows you to draw shapes. Then to the right of that is the gradient tool, which allows you to make gradients. And then there's the selection tool, which allows you to make selections. I will note that the selection tool can only be used on the flat texture and not the cube, but it can be useful for moving things around and copying and pasting textures. And if you want to move the entire texture layer, you can use the Move Layer tool. There is also a mirror mode, which just mirrors what you do to the other side of your model. This can help a lot with super symmetrical things. The lock alpha mode means you can't draw on anything outside of your main model. I have never used this, but it may have some importance. There's a painting grid, which will outline the pixels for you. And then there's the tiled view, which will allow you to see what your texture will look like if it was surrounded by multiple copies of itself. I have also never used this tool, but my theory is that it would be useful if you're making a custom block that you would want to see repeatedly next to each other to get an idea for how it would look in game? I guess? Now that we know all of our tools, it's time to put them to use. You're on your own for this one. Good luck! While we're painting here, I do have a couple tips for you guys. First, if you want to add a reference image, go ahead and find a picture you'd like to use, copy it, and then go back to your project, right-click on the background somewhere, and click Reference Image from Clipboard. And just add it to this project, unless you want to see it on every other thing you make. And if you need to move it, just double-click and you can drag it around. Something I like to do when texturing is to take Minecraft items and color pick from them. The Minecraft dyes are especially useful for this. Or, if I'm trying to make something metallic, I'll grab a gold or copper ingot for reference. It can help things look more Minecrafty. And for the second tip, you may notice that in some parts of your model that you have some Z-fighting. That's when two surfaces overlap and start glitching out like this. When making your model, it's best to avoid having cube surfaces overlap for that reason. But in some instances, like curves on our hat brim here, it's kind of unavoidable. One way to fix this is to make the overlapping textures the exact same color. But sometimes that doesn't always look good. So here's the live solution. If we go back to the Edit tab and go select one of the cubes, we can inflate it by a teeny tiny bit. And even that little difference will be enough to stop the Z-fighting. Alright, all done with texturing? Once you're done, we're gonna hop back over to display. Now, we're going to properly position how our model is going to look in game. Let's start with third person right. This will be how the model looks in the player's hand. We can use the sliders on the right to change the rotation, translation, and scale of the model. Or you can use the move, resize, and rotate tools in the toolbar if you're more comfortable with that. We can also use the slider down here to move the mannequin's arm up a bit to see how it holds the model better, but it of course won't look like that in game. Along with the player mannequin, we can also see what the item will look like held by a zombie, baby zombie, and armor stands. Just note that whatever changes you make to the others will also affect the main mannequin, so try to prioritize which one is the most relevant. Along with third person right, we've also got third person left. The sides aren't connected, so you can make one side look entirely different from the other. But if you want to mirror the positioning, just go to the first one you were editing, click on this button here that says copy when you hover over it, then go back to the side you want to apply it to, and click the clipboard button to paste. Next to third person left is first person right and first person left, where the concept is pretty much the same, but instead of the zombies and armor stands, we now have bows, blowing goat horns, and eating. Then to the right of those is our smiley face, the head slot. Since we already did work over here though, we shouldn't have too much to edit. Aw, look how dapper the baby zombie looks. Next we have the ground position. We get a little animation of how our model will look hovering over a block. Again, the concept is the same as previous positions. However, we can now see what the model will look like being held by a fox. Since these are connected though, you'll probably only be able to make one of these look normal. So again, you'll have to prioritize. Though seeing a fox wearing a top hat is almost worth it. Who am I kidding? It's definitely worth it. I'm sure no one will notice, right? Next, we have the item frame position. What's cool about this is you can see what your model will look like with a visible and invisible item frame, as well as what an item frame would look like sitting on the top of a block. I personally like to pose mine with the top item frame in mind in case I ever want to place my model on the ground or on a table. And lastly, we have the GUI positioning. This is what the item will look like in your inventory. When doing this one, be sure to go up to this drop down here and change it from side light to front light. Otherwise, your model may have a weird shadow over it. So, we've got our model made, textured, and positioned. But there is just one last crucial thing that we must do. We have to save our model. Go up to File and hover over Export, where you have the option to export block/item model. This will let you save your model as a .json file. Be sure to keep naming consistent and save the file to a place where you won't lose it. And don't forget to save your texture too. For that, just click on the floppy disk icon. And that's it! You did it! You've made a custom model. Now, it's time to get it in game. So let's talk about resource packs. A resource pack is where we put all of our files in a specific order in a specific folder to make our new textures appear in game. And I'm going to show you how to make one from scratch for our new custom model. Firstly, we're going to need a new folder. Name this to whatever you'd like. I'll just be calling mine Top Hat. And don't worry, capitalization and spacing don't matter for this name. Now, open up that folder. We're going to put a few different things in here, starting with a pack.mc meta file, which will tell the game what version this pack is for, as well as a brief description of the pack. To do this, create a text file and name it to pack.mc meta, and get rid of the .txt at the end. Your computer is going to ask you to make sure you want to do this, and you can go ahead and tell it yes. Now, if you don't see the .txt in the file name, that means you have file extensions turned off. If you're using Windows 10 like me, then all you have to do is click on View up at the top and tick the box on the right that says File Name Extensions. Now you should be able to see the .txt and remove it from the name. If you're using something other than Windows 10, then I'm afraid you'll have to Google this one, but I can't imagine it would be too convoluted. Next, we can open up our file and edit it. I'm using Notepad++ to make my edits, so my page will probably look a bit different from yours. You can just open up the file with regular Notepad and you should be just fine. But if you want to use Notepad++ too, I'll leave a link in the description. I'm also going to leave some text in the description for you to copy into this file. Once pasted in, there will be two parts you'll need to edit. First is the pack format number, which changes every Minecraft update. Most of my worlds are currently on 1.21.6, and the pack format for that is 63. This will be different for each version, so I'll leave another link in the description to the Minecraft wiki, which will have a list of all the game versions and their corresponding pack numbers. The other thing you'll probably want to change is the description within the quotes. Since this won't be Liv's template pack, this will be your own. So type whatever you'd like in here. And don't forget to save once you're done. Next, you'll need an image file called pack.png. This will be the icon for the resource pack. All it is a 64 by 64 image, and you can literally make this in MS Paint if you want to. I'll just whip something up together for the fun of it. And last but certainly not least, we will need to make a new folder and call it Assets. Inside this folder, we are going to make another new folder and name it Minecraft. And then in this folder, we are going to make 3 new folders and call them Items, Models, and Textures. All 3 of these folders work together. We'll start with the texture folder. Inside of this folder, we are going to make a new folder and call it Item. And inside of this folder, we will be putting in our custom model texture. So that top hat we made earlier, the texture file for that can go right in here. Next, let's go back to the Minecraft folder, and let's go into Models next. Inside the Models folder, we are going to be making another folder here and also call it Item. And inside of this folder, we are going to be placing in the .json file of our custom model. So the file that we exported from Blockbench, that goes right in here. Now, let's open up that .json real quick and make a couple edits. First off, the credits. Feel free to put your name in there. It is your model after all. Next, a few lines down, you'll see a chunk called Textures. And within that chunk, we have a couple lines. The first will probably say 0, and the other will say particle. Both followed by a colon and the path Blockbench attempted to make for us. We'll be changing this to a new file path. So the file already knows that our texture will be inside the Textures folder, but inside that we have another folder called Item. So inside these quotes we will put Item, but then we need to know which file inside of that folder we need to grab. If this pack was a lot bigger, we may have several texture files to pull from. So we need the right one. So we'll add a slash, which you could also think of as an arrow, and then the name of our texture, which in my case is top_hat. You'll also need to do the same thing below for particle. So now the model file knows which texture to pull from. Lastly, let's go back to the Minecraft folder and go into the folder that we named Items. This is where we will tell the resource pack what Minecraft item we want our new model to be. Since I've made a top hat and want to be able to wear it, I want my model to be a carved pumpkin. For this part, I'm going to use a special data pack generator site to help build this file. Before 1.21, the file format was very different, and I had to do this part from scratch. But after the format changed, I found this site made by an awesome person who came along and made a generator to make this process a whole lot easier. And that's what I'm going to be using for this next step to make my top hat a carved pumpkin. Go ahead and open up the site, and it should look like this. We're going to click on all generators and scroll down until we find item. Click on that and we will be taken to here. We've had a few version changes, but for today I want to use 1.21.6. Now on the left here we have the model type, which we'll be setting to range dispatch. We're going to be making the property custom model data and add an entry by pressing the first green button, with our threshold being set to 1 and the type being set to model. Now, remember how we had our model point to the texture file? We will be doing the same thing here, but instead we will have the file point to our model instead. So the file already knows to pull from the model folder, but then inside the model folder it needs to go into the item folder. So we'll type item, then slash, then the name of our model, which in this instance is top_hat. Perfect! I also want to mention that each entry is a different custom model. So if you want another custom model set to this item, you would create another entry, but this time set the threshold to another number like 2, and then change the model info to be the other item. But since we are only creating one for now, we can just leave this as is. Lastly, we're going to press the green button next to fallback, and we will set type to model, and then set the model to be whatever item we want our custom model to be. And in this case, that is a carved pumpkin. Now we're going to press this down arrow in the bottom right to download the file. It's going to be draft.json by default, but we're going to change it to the identifier name of our item, which is carved_pumpkin. Let's toss that into the items folder, and now the time has come to see what our model looks like in-game. For this, I'm going to use a data pack called Custom Roleplay Data. When creating a new world, you can go to the More tab and put the data pack in through there. Or if you want to use a pre-existing world, you'll need to open up your world saves folder and go into its data packs folder to place it in that way. Once in game, apply your resource pack by pressing escape, going to options, pressing resource packs, and dragging and dropping our pack into the game. Don't forget to apply it! Next, the custom roleplay data pack will default to making a custom model cost 1 level, but I want to turn that off. So we're going to go into chat and type out the command /function space custom_roleplay_data : set_required_level space open bracket level : 0 close bracket. And enter. Now we need to take the item we want to change and type the command /trigger space custom model data space set space 1, or whatever number you set your custom model to be. Then press enter and boom! If all went well, you should have your very own custom model. If not, please be sure to check that you named everything properly. You'd have no idea how many times I've messed up by misspelling a texture file. Also, if you were working with a carved pumpkin, you may have noticed your vision being a bit obscured when you put on your hat, because that's just how carved pumpkins work. Thankfully, we can change this. We can go into our resource pack from in the game by going into the pack folder and selecting it, then going into Assets, Minecraft, and Textures. In here, we're going to make a new folder and call it MISC, or Miss. I'm not actually sure how you pronounce that. I think it's short for miscellaneous, but anyways, here we need to make a transparent image that is 256 by 256 pixels. Sadly, we can't use MS Paint for this one since you can't make transparent images in there. But if you've got Photoshop, or you're like me and have Krita, which is free, you can make it that way just fine. Once you've got your image, you'll need to rename it to pumpkinblur.png. Then, once you head back to your game, you can hit F3+T to refresh your pack, and you should now be able to see. Now let's say, hypothetically, sometime in the future, you want to make another model that also goes onto a carved pumpkin, but you don't want to go through the process of redoing all the inputs you made on the generator and downloading a whole new file. Is there an easier way? Yes! Here's what you do. Go to your Minecraft folder and go into Items. Then click on the carved pumpkin file, or whatever file it is that you want to continue. You're going to see that under the 5th line, we have a chunk of code here, starting with this open bracket and ending with this close bracket. This is where it says that there's a model named Top Hat, and when the carved pumpkin is given the attribute of 1, it's going to look like that. And if we want to make another model to go on a carved pumpkin, what we're going to do is copy this whole section from the open bracket to the closed bracket, then add a comma after the closed bracket here, then add a new line and paste in what we copied. Now we need to edit what we just pasted to apply to our new model, so we'll change the threshold value to 2 instead of 1, and change the file path to be whatever we name our new model. And that's that! If you ever want to continue adding on to this file, you just do the same thing over and over again. Copy, comma, enter, paste. But don't forget the comma. It's one of the easiest mistakes in the book. One last thing I want to mention is the implementation of custom textures. Rather than making an entire model, we just need to make a bit of pixel art for our texture. And just like the model, we can tie a Minecraft item using the generator site from earlier. But since we didn't make this item in Blockbench, we don't have the .json file for the models folder that we'd normally get from exporting the Blockbench model. Luckily, that website that we used earlier can also be used for generating that. Head back to the list of all the generators and look for the one that says Model. Up here in the box that says Parent is where we control how the item is held in the player's hand. Most items are generally set to Generated. Apples, ingots, kelp, nether stars, all of these would be generated. However, if you were dealing with a weapon or a tool, like a sword, that position would be then set to Handheld. This makes the item a little bit bigger and makes it point at you rather than facing you. If you like handheld but want it to be flipped, that would be handheld_rod. This is what a fishing rod or a carrot on a stick would be set to. There are a few other positions, but these 3 are the most important ones, and probably the only ones you'll ever use. For this item, I'm going to be using generated. Next, we're going to press the green plus button next to textures, then type layer 0 with no spaces. Then press the green plus button next to that. Next, we are once again going to add our file path. So without any spaces or capitalization, we're going to type Minecraft, item / and then the name of our texture, which in this instance is marshmallow. Make sure you got all the spelling correct, then go ahead and download it. Then rename that file to the name of your texture, so marshmallow.json, and place it into the model items folder. And just like we did before with the top hat, place your texture in the item texture folder, and make a .json with the website that ties the custom item with a Minecraft item, and place it in the items folder. Now you can bring your custom texture into your world too! I hope the knowledge I shared with you today helps you in your endeavors, and I wish you the best of luck in your resource pack work. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. And I can't guarantee that I'll have an answer, as I'm also still learning new things about custom models all the time, but I'll do my best. And with that, I wish you farewell. Love you all, bye!